giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, well, I don't wanna jinx it, baby, and twist myself at the spine. Don't wanna overthink it, baby. It's just twist your body and mine. Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, but I don't wanna jinx it, baby. Let's not get ahead of my time. Oh, but I don't wanna be.
Okay, so how's everybody doing? So let's talk about the first signal, right? So this is intended basically for those that have been thinking about signaling and they're just a little bit intimidated by it. Maybe they have a starter set, maybe they have a really big set, maybe they have just one signal and one board and they want to just try it and see what it looks like. Because let's face it, when you put signaling on your model railroad, it looks awesome. And I want to show you how I take this simple approach, like kind of signaling for dummies, because when it comes to signaling, I'm a dummy, okay? And I'm going to try out this new Atlas signal system kit, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to use to do it. This is the signal system starter kit, hashtag no sponsor. I'm not sponsored by Atlas. I paid for this for my own funds, and I'm just giving you my straight goods and opinion on it, okay? So it's not biased. You'll also need this number 215 selector manual switch. There's no sensors. I'm not going to talk about automation or anything like that because that's a whole nother ballgame. All I want to do is get a signal on my layout, the first one, and see what it looks like, and then start to figure out how I'm going to structure all that later on once the railroad's finished. And I'll probably have at least 2 blocks, so I will have some signals, maybe 2 in the center where the block transition is, and then 1 on each end or whatever. But I actually want to scratch build a few, or from kit, some CP style ones. This one that comes with this kit is kind of a B&O style, so it's 3 separate LEDs, and it was actually 70 bucks Canadian, and this was about 15 bucks or so. So you're looking at 85 bucks just to get one signal started on your layout. Now you can buy these separately for about half that, for about 35 bucks, I think, or whatever, because you need one board for one signal. I was a little bit put off by that, but I thought, well, okay, that's this system, right? And all I wanted to do was to walk into a store and say, okay, I want to just do a manual switch, and I want to be able to change 3 aspects on a signal on my layout, and I want to do it manually because I want to see what it's like and see if I like it or not. So this is the system that I sort of started playing around with last night. It only took me about 10 or 15 minutes to hook it up. And what is interesting is that I didn't realize how easy it is if you approach signaling, like the learning curve, because it can be steep, one step at a time. Take baby steps, take your time. Just try to get one going first with a manual switch, okay? And I'll show you how this one works, okay? I got to turn this light off here, though, so you can sort of see it, okay? So you can see I have the Atlas switch connected, and it's really simple. It actually shows right here, look at that. It's just like, there's the switch, shows you the wire diagram. This is an MRC DC transformer. I just hooked it to the AC, just like they show on the diagram, okay? So you can see that. I hooked the power up to the AC side, and it shows how the 2 negative wires go into AC and then the 1 positive. Then this purple one is signified by this yellow one to the switch. Okay, So let me turn this light off again, and I'll put the power on and watch the signal light right here. So there it is, green, right? So that's what I wanted. I was like several weeks ago saying, I just want to try a signal on my layout, but I don't want to mess around and make a huge investment on a whole signal system that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get my head around or ever get to it, because I just can't find a person to help me, or I'm a little bit intimidated to do it myself. Well, guess what? I just did it with this kit, and it's easy to do, and you can do it too. Now, here's the interesting thing. So I thought, well, how do I switch it over to the different aspects, like the amber and the red? Well, this is one way you can do it, which is cool how Atlas did this. So it's just to this number 1 here. These 3 are all up. I just leave those for other accessories. And you can find these dirt cheap used too, I'm sure. So watch, I'm going to switch this up. So the train goes through the block. Let's say my train drives through. This is on my panel, and I just throw this, and then it goes red, right? So that block is occupied, right? So my train keeps going however long the block is. The block could be 4 feet or 40 feet. It really doesn't matter. If you're running a compressed layout in the operating philosophy, in the theater of your mind, and how you like to do railroading, whether it's linear compression, lateral compression, it doesn't matter, right? You can still use signals and still have small blocks. It's all a matter of how you approach it. So the train goes through the block and it leaves the block, and then you throw the switch. It goes to amber for 8 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then it goes green, right? Isn't that cool? So how do I automate that? Well, that would be the next step. And you know what you do? You leave all this the way it is as it's mounted, which I'll show you how simple it is to mount in a second. This gets replaced by a sensor. It explains in here that you can use, I think, NCE, but you can also use a Digitrack sensor as well. And there are other companies that do sensors as well. But my point is if you want to try out a signal on your layout and you're just really not sure about it, this is the easiest way to step into it and try it out without putting a lot of money out. If you might decide maybe, well, maybe I'm not going to bother with it. Now, if you want to add a second signal, the third one or fourth one, there's these 2 Cat5 connectors right here where you can daisy chain more of these boards you can buy separately. You don't have to buy them with this kit. They're about, I think they're about $30 or American, or 35 or 40 Canadian. I'm not really sure, but you can just put another one further down and do the same thing. And there is some logic in here that helps to relay what's going on. And once again, they explain that in this little basic, easy manual. It's really, like, I was really impressed with that. So now I have more confidence. Now I know that when I go to put an ABS system on River Road, just a small sampling of an ABS system, because I think it's cool and it'll be awesome to operate with, I have the confidence now that I can do it. And I can improvise and change up to a different system if I want. But this was a really good way to get started. And I really, really like how it works and how simple it was. Now, let me show you. I'll just turn this off. Okay, green. I'll show you basically how I'll install it on my layout, okay? And let me just unplug this, and let me just turn the light back on so we can see what's going on. So this is my layout substrate, right? 3/8 plywood, as you know, and then I have 1/4 inch cork on top here. And then there's just small 2.5 inch frames. So this is only about 2 inches here. So that's just a cleat. I just made some long cleats from 8-foot strips of plywood with a brad nailer and glue. I just made a bunch of offcuts. Like these are about 5 inches or so. Just cut a whole pile of these cleats. So I can take 2 spots of CA and then carpenter glue in the middle and just stick it up under my layout, hold it for 15 seconds, let go. When the carpenter glue cures, it's good to go. It's not coming off. The board I mounted on another piece of scrap plywood. Notice how I drilled holes in each corner. So I can mount it like this with 2 screws, or like this, okay, under my layout, right? So it's nice. I can see it. I can see the LED that power is good. And then my signal, I take a 5/16 drill bit and I drill a hole through my substrate, down through my layout, right? I take the plug and I just drop it down through, okay? And then I mount my signal. I can use 4 pins, there's 4 holes there, or I can use a clamp or a weight, use some matte medium, because I can cut matte medium, it's rubbery if I want to remove it. And then I basically mount my board and I plug in the signal and the power and I'm good to go. And that to me is awesome, because I know there's people out there that have a signal system or want to get into it and they're intimidated by it, just like me. But I'm not anymore. Thanks to this little Atlas system starter kit. I have plans to do ESU down the road. When I get everything figured out on my layout and my block system in place, then I'll look to maybe attack the learning curve a little bit more. But I can run the whole system with just this Atlas if I want. And it makes model railroading awesome, okay? Okay, so just for those that aren't aware, this is the layout plan. This is that long spur. This is where the brewery is, and then you can see the barge slip here. And I'm going to put this signal right here. Okay, and it signals for this main. This is the main right here. Okay, and then this goes off to serve the industry, and this is a runaround siding. So instead of, I mean, I should really have 2 signals or 2 heads here, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm just putting this one in there, and I just put an indication right hand where it mounts here on the layout, okay? And then, you know, the plan goes further down, as you can see. This is the approach section 2, and then IPEX plastics quick, and then this is for section 3 down to the grain elevator. But that is where the signal goes, okay? So just before I mount this signal, I just touched it up with some paint. I didn't really like this base was plasticky, so I painted it with some cement and then put a bit of a wash, a little bit of rust or raw umber, and then I took some light pale gray and put a wash on the mast, you know, just to kind of Canadianize it a little bit, even though it's not really a Canadian signal, but it's sort of in the trees, and I don't want to let it go to waste. So SRY uses CN, CP rail parts and things and components for their turnout switch machines. So they'll grab lots, and stuff comes up from the States all the time from SP. And this is, you know, maybe it found its way. That's the story behind it. Found its way up to SRY, and they stuck it, you know, on a lower priority kind of part of the short line. And they're always trying to save money. And then you can see I just painted this yellow, and then I put an R for right hand, so that this signal deals with the main on the right. And then I'll just go mount it now on the layout, okay? So you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just putting a blob of matte medium. This will dry flat and clear. It's not mixed with anything. Not in the hole though, just under the base. And then I'll look at it later and I can tweak the edges with a bit of turf or whatever. That way if I ever want to remove it, it's not hard to pull off because it has a rubbery kind of cure nature to it. And I could put pins in it, but I don't really need pins at this point. So use my hands for a second here. Just cleared the bent with the foam. I had to cut a little bit through the foam. There's pink foam under there. So some of that of course, when you do this on video, right, it never works. I rehearsed this already and now it won't go through. Isn't that the way it is? So it's hung up on something. I got to go underneath and look. Okay, so it got hung up on the bus. It would never find that angle normally. But you know how it is, right? Okay, so this is where I want it. So what I'm going to do is use this clamp. I love these little tweezer clamps.
But I don't wanna jinx it, baby. Let's not get ahead of my time. Oh, but I don't wanna miss you, baby. So I stand up and speak just my mind. Oh.
Okay, so I just want to point this out quick. Notice the depth of a shelf layout here. It's not even 2.5 inches. It's 2 3/8 thickness all the way along, right? And it's 57 inches, the track above the floor. Now, when it comes to wiring, we know how painful that can be, but here's the advantage to a shelf layout again. See my stool and my drill? I got to get under there with my Forstner and I got to drill access holes in the benchwork, right? Okay, so I can sit on my stool and do it all the way down. I mean, except for I wouldn't move my desktop there, my roll top, pardon me, but I can just move my bench out of the way. I can access underneath my layout very easily. See?
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, but I don't wanna jinx it, baby. Let's not get ahead of my time. Oh, but I don't wanna miss you, baby. So I stand up and speak just my mind. Oh.
Okay, just to touch on this here, on these, basically these conduit wire hangers that you can just make out of scrap. Like I bet you all you evergreen collectors like me that have a big stash of evergreen tubes somewhere that that's going to sit there for years probably if you don't use it for modern day columns or whatever. At least I do. I have lots of it around. It's very handy, but I often only use short pieces of this tube. So with these, this is 5/16 number 230. So I want to be able to hang some of my wires underneath the layout because I really think it's cool. I'm always impressed and have a lot of respect for people that take the time to almost artistically wire the bottom of their layout to such a degree that they can make some sense out of it down the road, because it's going to like keep expanding and it's going to turn into a big spaghetti bowl, and then what do, right? And I think it's a reflection on good modeling overall if a person applies their modeling skills to their wiring skills, even if you're not electrical savvy like me, and I'm not, but you know, we can all do basic electronics, right? So you can see I just take a piece of 40 thou scrap and I weld this tube to that. Now, if you want to open them, you can just put a slice real easy, just score down straight down, and then just put this on a piece of wood and then take your knife and it'll just, with ease, like butter, just cut right through. And then what I'm going to do with this one is, just like the rest, is I'm going to lay on a really good bead of solvent. Make sure that you sand, like you rough sand. I always do this. I've mentioned this 60 grit, both the tube a little bit to stroke it a couple times and the plate. And then when you mount it down, it just ensures an excellent bond with integrity, okay? And then I just take a little bit of like another bead and run it down the back side. And then another bead like this, okay? And then just make sure, like, just slide it back and forth a few times, rock it back and forth. And you end up with a really nice little plate, conduit plate to, you know, to feed your wires through, like under your bench work, okay? And just helps to keep things more organized. I won't do this for my main accessory bus, which will be separate from my track bus. But this is the secondary routing of wires from the signal controller and sensor kind of group to the accessory bus. It just helps you to sort of trace things a little bit easier, right? You could probably number these too. And you can drill holes in these for a screw, or you can just put a spot of medium CA, just a small spot in the middle, that's all you need, and press it onto the bottom of your wood frame, and it's good to go. And if you ever really need to pop it off, you can just take a number 18 blade and just get up in behind it and pop it right off, okay? Okay, so Electronics 101, we're on the home stretch. And I thought this was going to be a 10-minute video. Well, you know, it could have been, but if I left it out, I got to give just a quick shout out to Vincent Sanders. He's been since the very beginning of the whole channel, even Glover Road, and he made a comment. I mean, he used to comment more, but he watches on TV and understand he can't always comment, and I get that for those that do watch the channel on a TV. There's no ability to comment for easily, but he said, show everything. And so I think about that sometimes when I think I'm cutting short, because sometimes I leave things out. It's hard, right? Because sometimes I'm working, you know, back and forth. It's kind of like a movie. They shoot the end first and then the beginning last, and weird stuff like that. It's never really chronological. So you kind of lose kind of, you know, segments or certain actions that maybe you should have included or whatever, and I try to address them in the comments below. But yeah, so I mean, it happens, right? But this was meant to be just a quick review and how easy the signal system, you know, Atlas in this case is, and it is on the bench. You should be able to get it, I mean, I don't know, half an hour play around with it and you'll get a light and some aspects going, but it's a little bit longer to do this, right? And I actually like doing this. I like taking my time. I just look at it like it's a model, right? And I want it to be organized and clean and professional if I can, even though it's still a hobby, right? Okay, so a couple of things. See the diagram here, just to refresh. So here's the power supply, which is, you know, 3 or 4 feet away by my power bar, which I'm going to run, you know, the single bus to, or the power cables, which isn't really a bus, but it's a single serving bus though. So this purple wire here, okay, is this yellow wire. I just used yellow, I didn't have purple wire. So if you look at that and wonder, it doesn't really matter. I didn't want to use red or black just to confuse anyone or myself, because I can be easily confused. So here's another reason I want to show you why I tin the ends of the wire. Okay, so I want to make sure I tin all the wires. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I like the peace of mind. I just dip them in flux and I tin the end because I can put a curl in that. Nice chrome. There's no strands splaying off, touching another part of the board, you know. I can sleep at night when I tin all my wires and I have nice conductivity integrity, right? Like, is that even a, geez, those two words together, conductivity integrity. So it's solid now, one wire, and I can nip that off nice and clean. So when I put it in to the input, I can push it in and make sure that that it's stripped right to where it goes in. Like, I don't want the wire sticking out like that. That's just a recipe for shorts. And believe me, they can happen, and they will. You know how it is when you drop the screw and it goes 8 feet into the little hole in one in the, you know, right? So I push it all the way in, and you need a little tiny screwdriver, I should also mention. Like, see the end of this? It's like the smallest flathead you'll ever see or use. Okay, but you need it for this little board. So excuse my hands if they get in the way, but so you back this screw out, and there's a little elevator thing that drops, and then you turn it clockwise once you put the wire in, and it pulls up. The little elevator goes up. It's like a jack screw, and it tightens beautifully, and there it is, right? And it's hooked up to the Atlas switch. Now let me show you this part with the Atlas switch. And this is another reason why I also tin my wire. Let me grab my Phillips screwdriver that I just dropped down here, and then drop that one out of the way. So you know how Atlas switches can be a bit tough to hold the screw to get it into the, you know, there's a little sort of concave sort of screw opening in here, and you can't get the wire around the screw, and if you turn the screw, you know, it splays out and makes a mess of things, and that's another recipe for disaster. But if you tin the end of the wire, it's hard and stiff, and you can take, you know, your orbital type needle nose, right? And you can make a curve in the end of the wire, and it'll hold its shape stiff because it's soaked in solder, and solder's stiff. So now you can put the screw on the end of it, you can wrap it around, and you can put the screw on the end and it won't fall off, right? So now I can basically go up like this. I can bend that like this, and then I can basically line up the screw like this. Come on, girl. Don't you just love these Atlas switches? And there it is, right? Like, it's a beautiful connection now. It's not splayed out, and you didn't have to fiddle with needing two hands. I only needed one hand on the wire and one hand on the screwdriver. So then this is the main negative bus, which I'll feed up through here, along with the red power one. You can see this is where the Y is. I made a Y in there. This is what I also do, is I take some 99% isopropyl alcohol and I just stab it with a brush, and I clean off any corrosive flux that need not be there. Okay, and then I slide this shrink tube over top. We don't want any shorts. And let's shrink that. Okay, so there's the Y harness for the ground. And then I'll grab my other little baby flathead again. And this one comes up over, let's check the manual. When in doubt, always double check the manual. So you can see that this black wire concerning the board goes into the common, which is this very top one right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up over the top like this. And just excuse my hand, I'll try to get that out of the way for you. Okay, make sure the elevator goes down, and then slide it all the way in so it dead stops. And the coating of the wire, the sleeve of the wire, is almost inside the terminal. That's what you want. Then you'll have peace of mind and you can sleep at night. And you'll feel good about it anyway when it's nice and neat. When your wiring's nice and neat, you feel, it's, you know, a sense of pride about everything being orderly. Okay, so look at that. So isn't that nice? So Now I can leave a little bit of slack in case it gets tugged on. Now we're going to run the positive wire. Oh, sorry. The camera's always, the camera's the little angel on my shoulder, right? And sometimes it's a good angel, sometimes it's a bad one. Oops. And then I got a lavalier cable. I look like a you know, a robot with all these wires hanging off me. So here is, so here's the power wire. Okay, the power wire goes into power. It's the second one below the negative one. So we'll drop that. And then what we need to do is just nip off a little bit of that end, because we don't need all of it. We don't want it to stick out, okay? I don't normally let that little chunk just fall anywhere, but I'll have to vacuum it up. So I'll just back that screw off till the elevator goes down, and then it clockwise, and it pulls the wire up tight. There we go there. So now I can feed this wire up through here, and we'll just jump over. Well, I'll show you where I'm going to thread it through those conduit cable supports, okay? Okay, so last but not least, okay? So finally, everything is hooked up as per manual, as it indicates on this manual on figure 6. Atlas refers in here to page numbers, but there are no pages on the manual, go figure. But it does say figure 6, and this is the figure that I set this manual mode up with, and I've done everything exactly right. But wait, have I? Because this is really weird, and some of you might have an answer for this. So I hooked all this up, I plugged in the power, I get a red LED up here, it's slaved to the switch 1, I try the switch, and guess what? The signal comes on amber, but it won't go red or green. And I'm going up and down like this, right? And I'm going, what's wrong? You know, like, geez, come on, right? Oh no, you know, right? You know how it can be, right? So I start scratching my head and I go, okay, so unpower it. Pull the plug or turn the power off and go read the manual again. So I double checked everything. The red and the black wire is all proper. It's all wired properly. This yellow wire, which is indicated by this purple wire, I just used a yellow wire. It makes no difference because I didn't have purple wire. I just used yellow. It doesn't matter, right? So that's hooked up in the proper terminal to the switch properly. Okay? Then I looked again. I thought, what's wrong? It still wouldn't work. So I looked here, I turned the power off, and I looked at the switches on the switch. Now this really makes me scratch my head because this is a 4-switch plate, right? So 2, 3, and 4 don't work, or they're not hooked up, like they're not wired up. I'm only wired into the first switch. But funny thing is on this picture, it shows all 4 in the down position, okay? This is what it looked like when I tried it, and it wouldn't go off of amber. So you know what I did? I turned off the power and I put all the switches down like this. And then I turned the power back on. And guess what? When I use the single switch that it's wired to, I flick the switch, red, okay? I flick it down, amber for 8 seconds, and then green. I'm like, all right, it finally works. So there it is, right? A manual controlled signal system in the Atlas starter kit, and it helped me get over the hump, or finally give me the courage to finally say, okay, I'm going to start putting signals. I want to put signals on the layout, and I want to learn this learning curve from the bottom up. And I think that this is a pretty good system, even though I think this switch is cheesy, but that's Atlas for you, right? But I did it exactly the way they said, and it worked, right? So you got to give them kudos for that. And now I feel confident that I can daisy chain and add another switch machine, and I can take the next step into track sensors. And that's what this whole particular package is designed to do, I think. So for any of you that are, you know, a little bit apprehensive and you're a little bit maybe intimidated by it, I do recommend this actual kit because it helped me and it looks awesome. I'm going to show you at the very end here in just a few seconds. So if you want to start out and install your first signal, the first signal, and you want to have enhanced realism on your model railroad layout, this isn't a bad idea, and I'm glad I did it, and I'm well on my way now for an ABS signal system down the road on River Road. Okay, cheers, happy modeling, and I hope you have a great day.
Baby,